After a long hospital stay, I returned home to find my locks changed, my pets gone, and my neighbor hosting parties inside my house. My own aunt had declared to the neighborhood that I was never coming back, and they had permission. I stayed quiet, hired a lawyer, and blindsided them both with court papers at their backyard barbecue, ruining their reputations, bank accounts, and dreams all at once. 2 years ago, I was living alone in a little ranch-style house just outside Waco, Texas. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Paid off. Cozy. I had 2 dogs, Brutus and Molly, and a cat named Jasper. They were my whole world. I worked remotely, lived a quiet life. My only real family around was my Aunt Brenda. She wasn't my favorite person, but we tolerated each other. When the accident happened, everything changed overnight. I got hit head-on by a drunk driver. Broke my femur, my ribs, dislocated my hip, punctured a lung. I spent weeks in a coma, months after that in a hospital bed, and even longer in a rehab facility. I was unconscious or heavily medicated for a good portion of it. I wasn't updating anyone, I could barely speak for a while. Before it all, I gave Brenda my house key and instructions: feed the pets, get the mail, check the place once in a while. I thought she could be trusted. 9 months later, I finally got cleared to leave. I didn't tell Brenda or anyone else. I wanted to come home and surprise her, maybe even cry and thank her properly. I even bought her a gift basket from the hospital gift shop. The volunteer who drove me from the rehab center chatted the whole way, but I barely heard him. My heart was pounding with excitement. That excitement died the second we turned onto my street. There were at least 15 cars parked along the road, balloons tied to my mailbox, and people, strangers, laughing and drinking in my front yard. There was a big, ugly white banner stretched across my porch. "Congrats Darren and Mike, new beginnings!" At first, my brain couldn't even process it. I actually thought, for one wild second, that maybe Brenda sold her house and was throwing a party for someone else. But no. It was my address. My mailbox. My porch. I got out of the car, my legs shaky. I dragged my bad hip up the walkway. When I tried my key, it didn't fit. Changed. I knocked. Hard. A teenage girl answered the door. I didn't know her. She was wearing a faded old t-shirt that used to be mine, a concert tee from a band I loved in high school. She had a red Solo cup in one hand and reeked of weed. I asked to speak to Brenda. She just laughed and yelled over her shoulder, "Brenda! Some old dude's here!" I'm 41, by the way. When Brenda came into view, it was like getting stabbed. She was dressed to the nines, hair curled, glass of wine in hand, looking like she didn't have a care in the world. She froze when she saw me, for half a second. Then she smiled this cold, rehearsed smile. "Oh. Wow. You're back." It wasn't joy. It wasn't relief. It was pure panic, barely hidden under fake sweetness. I asked her, my voice shaking, what the hell was going on. That's when she started with the lies. She claimed that after months of no word, she assumed I was permanently incapacitated. She told neighbors I was essentially brain dead and would be in a home forever. According to her, she had no choice but to make arrangements for the house. Those arrangements included giving my home to my next-door neighbor, Darren, and his boyfriend Mike, who were looking for a bigger place to settle down. Darren, the same guy who used to bitch if my trash can sat at the curb too long, was now throwing a housewarming party inside my living room. I asked about my pets. Brenda shrugged. We found them good homes. It was the humane thing. Humane. She said it like she was doing me a favor. At that moment, it hit me, Brenda never cared about me. Not once. She saw an opportunity. She wanted my house, my things, my life, all gift-wrapped without lifting a finger. And she thought I was too broken to come back and stop her. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I didn't even call the cops, yet. Instead, I acted confused. Tired. Weak. I let Brenda and some random guy escort me back to the sidewalk. They called a cab for me. I heard someone whisper, "Poor guy doesn't even know where he is," as I got into the car. I took that cab to the cheapest, dirtiest motel on the edge of town. I sat there for 2 hours, staring at the stained ceiling, letting the anger build. I wasn't going to get mad. I was going to get even. The next morning, I called the best civil litigation attorney in Waco, a guy named Eric. Eric didn't sugarcoat anything. He told me this wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was fraud. Theft. Identity theft. Financial abuse. Illegal tenancy. Criminal charges and civil suits both. He asked if I wanted to destroy them. I said yes. We spent the next 3 months building a case. Eric pulled my hospital records, showing that not only was I alive and well, but I had regained full mental faculties months before Brenda started moving people into my house. We pulled my deed, still fully in my name. We accessed texts Brenda had sent to my cousins, bragging about finally being free of responsibility, and how she and Darren were making over the old place for a fresh start. We pulled photos from my home's security system, the one she forgot about, showing her and Darren selling my belongings at garage sales, hosting parties, moving furniture out. We found records that Darren and Mike had listed parts of my house, on Airbnb. They even had a listing that said, "Charming Texas home close to everything pet-friendly." I nearly vomited. Worse, we tracked down where my dogs had ended up. They had been rehomed through a shady rescue Brenda contacted. Luckily, both dogs had microchips. They were still in Texas. Alive. Jasper, my cat, was a different story. He had been adopted out through a different shelter. No records. No trace. It gutted me. But I didn't let it show. I kept working. Gathering. Preparing. And then, when the trap was fully set, I picked my moment. There was a massive backyard barbecue being thrown at my house. Darren and Mike's "Thank you, Brenda" party. 100 people at least. Music blasting. Laughter filling the air. They even had a damn local photographer there taking candid shots of the happy community event. It was a perfect day. Eric hired 2 process servers dressed in casual polos and khakis. They blended right in. At exactly 4:00 p.m., while Darren was giving a big drunk speech about new beginnings, the servers waded into the crowd and handed Brenda, Darren, and Mike their papers. Everyone saw. Everyone heard Brenda shriek, "This is a misunderstanding!" Everyone saw Darren turn white as a sheet. Everyone heard Mike ask, loud enough to echo, "Are we going to jail?" Neighbors whispered. Phones came out. Pictures were taken. Video too, I'm sure. In that one moment, their entire fantasy life collapsed. Brenda's fake image of a caring aunt and community leader was shattered. Darren and Mike's dreams of starting over were poisoned forever. They tried to spin it. They tried to say I was mentally unwell, confused, a burden. But the documents didn't lie. The lawsuits were brutal. The lawsuits weren't the end. They were just the beginning. As soon as Brenda and Darren got served, the lies started unraveling fast. Brenda had convinced almost everyone, the neighbors, the town, that she was my legal guardian. That she had power of attorney. That I had no family left. But when Eric pulled the records, there was no power of attorney. No guardianship. No legal authority, nothing. She had been forging letters and forms, signing my name, and telling people, "It's just easier if we don't involve the courts." When it came out that she forged my signature on a fake document to Darren giving him permission to move in, that's when criminal charges entered the picture. And Darren? Oh, Darren was neck deep too. Turns out, he wasn't just throwing parties. He had made about $15,000 renting my house out on Airbnb over the last 6 months. Even worse, some of the guests had complained, saying they were robbed while staying there. Missing jewelry, missing wallets. Small stuff, but enough that the police took notice. Mike, Darren's boyfriend, panicked and flipped on him almost immediately. He showed police text messages and emails between him and Darren, bragging about how easy it was, and how the old guy, me, wasn't ever coming back. Mike even gave up the fact that Darren had been using my credit cards. Yeah, credit cards. When I was in the hospital, half dead, Darren had gone through my mail, activated a couple of cards I forgot to cancel, and racked up over $8,000 in charges. Mostly booze, drugs, and home renovations. He didn't even try to hide it. There were receipts with his name on them, delivered to my house. Meanwhile, Brenda tried to go on the attack. She started telling people I was mentally unstable, dangerous, unfit to be alone. One day, 2 weeks after the barbecue, I found a flyer taped to my motel room door. It had my face on it, an old picture from my driver's license, and big letters. Beware, dangerous individual. Do not engage. Brenda made fake flyers about her own nephew. I took it straight to Eric. He laughed out loud and said, "Great. Libel and harassment on top of everything else. More charges. More lawsuits." But it didn't stop there. Brenda also tried to manipulate the local church. She stood up during service one Sunday, church, of all places, and claimed she had been betrayed by evil forces, and that she needed help fighting back against attacks on her family. She tried to paint herself as the victim. It didn't work. By that point, too much had leaked. Too many people had seen the court papers, heard the real story. Someone posted video from the barbecue, Brenda screaming at the servers, Darren crying, Mike packing a suitcase into a Prius. It went semi-viral locally. "Scandal at Waco Barbecue," one Facebook group called it. Everyone knew the truth. Even Brenda's biggest supporters started backing away. The pressure crushed them. Brenda lost her campaign for city council. Darren got fired from his job at a local insurance office. Mike moved back in with his parents out of shame. And me? I finally stepped foot back inside my own home. It was like stepping into a stranger's house. They had painted over everything. My old photos were gone. My furniture, the couch I bought when I got my first raise, the bed frame my father built, sold off or destroyed. The walls were scuffed. The floors were sticky. There were beer cans in the sink, cigarette burns on the counter. It took everything in me not to break down right there. The recovery process was brutal. I spent days cleaning, ripping up carpet, throwing out piles of trash left behind. Every single scratch, stain, hole in the wall felt personal, like they were mocking me. There was a moment, standing in my ruined kitchen, where I almost thought about selling the house. Just walking away. But no. I stayed. I fought. And every day, I got a little stronger. The lawsuits dragged on. Brenda tried every trick in the book to delay. Fake illnesses, crying fits in court, wild counterclaims. She even claimed I had abandoned the house and she had stepped in to preserve it. The judge wasn't buying it. Especially after the financial records showed her draining my bank accounts to fund parties, vacations, and a renovation project that was just pocketed cash. By the second court appearance, Brenda looked nothing like the polished, proud woman from the barbecue. She was pale, sweaty, her hair unwashed, hands shaking. Darren wasn't much better. He showed up once in an old suit 2 sizes too big, smelling like he hadn't showered in a week. There was one final twist before everything truly exploded, something nobody saw coming. Brenda wasn't working alone. Turned out, another family member was in on it. My own cousin, her son, Rick. Rick had helped Brenda create the fake documents. He'd notarized fake letters. He even posed as my health proxy, during some of the early scams. He thought he was safe because he was just helping his mom. When Eric found out, he added Rick to the lawsuit list too. 3 betrayals, 3 lawsuits, 3 lives about to go up in flames. Finding out about Rick almost broke me all over again. Rick had been the one family member I still trusted a little. We weren't close, but he always acted like he was different from Brenda, more honest, more real. I used to invite him over for beers. We'd watch football, talk about work, life, all that normal stuff. To find out he'd help fake signatures, help lie about me being non-functional, and even help move my stuff out of my own house. It was like losing a brother. Eric went after him with both barrels. Rick tried to deny it. Said he was pressured by his mom. That he thought it was legal. That he didn't know better. But when Eric dropped the email trail, Rick discussing, "How much can we get for the truck?" Referring to my old Ford Ranger, which Brenda sold without my permission, the judge's patience ran out. Rick got dragged into the lawsuits too. He faced charges of forgery, fraud, and conspiracy. Meanwhile, Darren's problems got worse. The police finished their investigation into the Airbnb thefts. Turns out, Darren didn't just steal from my guests. He and Mike had been running a mini-scam where they advertised multiple properties they didn't even own, and collected deposits up front. Several people were pressing criminal charges for fraud. Mike flipped even harder. He offered to testify against Darren in exchange for reduced charges. He handed over screenshots, emails, even phone calls, all showing Darren bragging about breaking it in, and nobody checking because it's just some coma guy's place. Coma guy. That's what they called me. Every time I heard it, it lit another fire inside me. Then came the financial audits. Eric's investigators went through Brenda's finances with a fine-tooth comb. It wasn't just the stolen house. She had been siphoning off small amounts from a church fund she helped manage, little enough that nobody noticed at first, but over time it added up to thousands. Charity money. When that got exposed, Brenda wasn't just facing my lawsuits anymore. She was facing state criminal charges for embezzlement. The church sued her separately. They blacklisted her name from every local congregation. She became a pariah almost overnight. Brenda's fake smile disappeared for good. But the biggest twist? Brenda had already put a down payment on a second home, using money stolen from selling my belongings and cashing checks made out to me. A fancy little lake house in Marble Falls. She was planning to retire early with her winnings. When the sale fell through because of the lawsuits and frozen accounts, she lost all the money she had put down, around $40,000. Gone. She tried to sue the real estate company, blaming them for unfair practices. They countersued for breach of contract. Her financial ruin wasn't just from me. It became a slow, bloody, public collapse on all sides. Rick, meanwhile, tried to cut a separate deal with me. He showed up one day at the motel, looking skinny, sweaty, desperate. I opened the door and stared at him through the security chain. He held up his hands, like I was about to attack him. "Man, listen," he said, voice shaking. "It wasn't supposed to go like this. Brenda lied to me too." I didn't say a word. "I'll testify for you," he said quickly. "I'll give you everything, emails, texts, whatever you need. Just don't ruin me, man. Please." He looked like he was about to cry. For a split second, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered the video he sent Brenda, laughing while carrying my dogs out to some stranger's truck. So I shut the door in his face. Later, Eric subpoenaed Rick anyway. We didn't need his permission. Back at my house, the rebuild continued. Neighbors who once smiled and waved now crossed the street when they saw me. Some because they felt guilty. Some because they had backed Brenda and were embarrassed. There were rumors. Some said Brenda was planning to move in with a distant cousin out of state. Some said Darren was facing jail time. Some said Rick had fled town already. I didn't care. Every hammer swing fixing a broken fence. Every paintbrush stroke covering up beer stains. Every piece of old furniture I threw out. It all felt like justice inching forward piece by piece. The court allowed me to place liens on Brenda's, Darren's, and Rick's remaining assets. They couldn't sell anything. Cars, property, jewelry, without it going toward the settlements they owed me. Every dollar they tried to scrape together? Mine first. I wasn't just taking back what was stolen. I was bleeding them dry. And it still wasn't over. The court hearings stretched through the whole next year. Every few months, Brenda, Darren, Rick, and I sat in the same courtroom, breathing the same stale air. Every time, they looked worse. Brenda showed up one day with her arm in a sling, trying to get sympathy. Rick shaved his head and wore a cheap Goodwill suit. Darren lost so much weight he looked sick. I didn't dress fancy either. Jeans, work boots, button-up shirt. I wanted the jury to see me for who I really was, a man trying to reclaim what was rightfully his. When it finally came time for testimony, I took the stand. I told everything. From the hospital bed to the front door of my stolen home. From the missing pets to the fake flyers calling me dangerous. From the garage sales to the forged signatures. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I told it like it was. Plain. Simple. Honest. The jury sat frozen the whole time. Even the judge looked pissed. When Eric dropped the final blow, showing a video Darren took, drunk, stumbling through my kitchen yelling, "King of the castle, baby!" It was over. No one even looked at Brenda when the verdict came down. Brenda, fraud, identity theft, embezzlement, grand theft, Darren. Theft, fraud, criminal mischief, animal cruelty. For abandoning my pets, Rick, forgery, aiding and abetting, fraud. They all faced heavy fines. They all got hit with restitution orders. And best of all, Brenda and Darren got jail time. Actual, real jail time. Brenda got sentenced to 18 months. Darren got 12 months, plus probation for 5 years. Rick avoided prison, barely, but he got slapped with 500 hours of community service, heavy fines, and a ruined record. But it wasn't just the jail that ruined them. The liens I placed on their assets meant every paycheck, every refund, every bank deposit over a certain amount was automatically docked, until they paid me back. Brenda had to sell off everything she owned. Her car? Gone. Her jewelry? Pawned. Her dream retirement house? Deposit? Lost forever. Rick had to move in with a sketchy roommate out by the highway, working 2 jobs to survive. Darren filed for bankruptcy and got denied because of the fraud convictions. Mike dumped Darren mid-trial, moved to Houston, and ghosted everyone. And me? I got my house back. It took almost $80,000 to undo the damage. Insurance helped a little, but most came from the settlements I squeezed out of their broken lives. I adopted a new cat, named him Justice. Brutus and Molly bounced back faster than I did. Dogs are pure that way. I'm still fixing things. Some scars you can't paint over. Like the empty wall where my dad's hand-built bookshelf used to be. Or the empty spot by the fireplace where Jasper used to sleep. They took things from me that I can never get back. But I also took things from them. More than they ever expected. Their homes. Their jobs. Their reputations. Their dreams. Gone. And they know, every single day, that they did it to themselves. The day Brenda went to jail, I showed up at the courthouse parking lot. I didn't speak. I didn't gloat. I just stood there, arms crossed, watching her in her wrinkled suit and handcuffs being led away by 2 deputies.